Hello, everyone. What's up, and welcome to Cage Cash. This is episode 8. I'm Ryan. Let's get into it. UFC 289. We've got Amanda Nunes and Irene Aldana. And then, of course, a great co-main event in Charles do Bronx Oliveira and Beneil Dariush. Really excited and looking forward for this card. 11 fights in total going to be taking place in Vancouver. We're recording this live here late Friday night, so gonna be taking a look here after weigh-ins. Got to see everybody on the scales today. Everybody did make weight successfully, which was good to see. So really hoping we're gonna get all of these fights to kind of follow through tomorrow. We've got 11 fights on the card, as I mentioned, so a bit of a smaller card, but I think we're gonna have some pretty interesting spots to kind of take a look at. So what I'll be doing is breaking down each of these fights pretty quickly, giving you my breakdown and prediction, as well as any bets I might have, as well as how I'm looking at these fights and these fighters from a daily fantasy perspective, particularly, how we're thinking about DraftKings lineups and where we might want to hedge some of our plays this weekend. So with that being said, let's get right into the card here. Kicking off the night, it's a pretty low-level fight, honestly. We've got Diana Belbita and Maria Oliveira. This is going to be a good, interesting matchup just because I think it's going to play out largely on the feet and just be a bit back and forth. I don't know that either girl has much power on the feet to put the other out. I really just see this being a 15-minute kickboxing match. The grappling is probably the weakness for most girls. For both girls, it definitely is for the Spider Girl in Maria Oliveira. Whereas Diana Belbita, she might be able to use some of the takedowns and grappling here, and I think if she does, she'll probably look like the rightful favorite in this spot. But I don't know. I'm struggling with this one a little bit, and I guess I'm gonna lean towards Belbita, and that's who I'll take, and I guess I'll take her by decision here. But I wouldn't put my money anywhere near this fight from a betting perspective. But the one thing I do want to call out is this could be a really interesting kind of unique fight to target when it comes to a DraftKings perspective. The reason I say this, their striking output numbers are really through the roof, and the women's weight classes, right? Particularly women's strawweight scores really well from a DraftKings perspective. So this could be an interesting way to get contrarian on DraftKings this weekend. Look to target either of these fighters who you're thinking has a good shot to pull it off, because if we do kind of see the high volume output that these girls are known for, right, it could be an interesting spot. And if Belbita works in takedowns, I think that could be nice as well. So I'm going to go Belbita by decision here, and I like her with a bit of upside. It's kind of a leverage play on DraftKings this weekend as well. Getting into the next fight, we've got David Dvorak and Steve Erceg. This is a really interesting spot as well. David Dvorak is a great fighter. He came into the UFC and quickly kind of picked up some wins against varying levels of competition. Bruno Silva, a win that's aged pretty nicely. Espinoza, and then Ronderos, right? But then kind of stepped up in that level of competition, lost to Nicolau and lost to Kopp last time out, right? And then back on the other side, you've got Steve Erceg. He is an Australian prospect. I think you've heard John and I maybe talk about him before. I forget who it was on the Australian scene who was coming in and had fought Erceg in the past, but he's a really interesting prospect coming out of Eternal MMA. Seems like they've wanted to get him into the UFC for a while. I like Erceg. I like him in this matchup, honestly, against Dvorak. I just don't think that the line is representative of, the opportunities that these guys are going to have, right? I think both guys are grapple first, but I think Erceg does that a little bit better, right? I think, Dvorak will probably win most of the stand-up exchanges on the feet, but I don't know that I can trust him to keep it there against Erceg. I really just liked Erceg's overall kind of well-rounded game and mindset in some of the tape that I've been able to see on him. He looks like he's cut out for this. I think he is on the up and up, and this could be a really, big spot for him to kind of come in and shock expectations. So I jumped in at Usyk early in the week at plus 310, but I still think he's a great play on DraftKings. You see he's down to plus 220 now. So not sure I really like the price there. We can take a look. I think I think this fight is at the moment scheduled to go the distance, right? Almost minus 160 to go the distance. But I think the Usyk by submission line is a really interesting look, right? And we'll see if that pops up in any of the other books between here and Fight Times tomorrow. But plus 600, I think if it gets done inside the distance, I think it could be that Usyk by submission, or that Dvorak by KO could be an interesting look as well, just because we haven't seen Usyk tested, at this high of a level before. And, if Dvorak can keep the fight standing and turn this into a boxing kickboxing match with Usyk for 15 minutes, I wouldn't be surprised if he can put him away. So, I'm going to take Usyk in this matchup, and I'm going to say he actually gets it done by decision. Threatens with the choke a lot, but doesn't get it done. But is really just able to control and win a lot of minutes with his grappling and get by David Dvorak to quickly kind of propel himself to a really good spot in this flyweight division. So, coming up next, we're going to have Blake Bilder and Kyle Nelson. So, Blake Bilder is coming in with a lot of hype. He's an 8-0-1 prospect, a bit of an older guy, though, at 32 years old. I'm not a huge fan of either the fighting or the personality. I think he's kind of coming in looking to be the UFC's next big promotion star. Has a bit of an O'Malley vibe to him without that same level of flashiness in the fight game to back it up, right? But man, on the Nelson side, it's not much better. As you can tell from this damn Tapology picture, it's been a tough scene, and it's been a tough go in the UFC as of late, right? 1-1-3 in his last 5, just against pretty low level competition as well. I mean, Quarantillo, you can forgive him there. Had that draw against Doo Ho Choi last time out. I like Nelson in this spot. I think I'm going to continue to play contrarian and continue to play the underdog here, especially from a DraftKings perspective. I think Nelson has some good upside, for the takedowns if he's able to implement that. God, I don't think he's very good, but I don't know that Bilder really is either. I don't know that I know that he doesn't justify a minus 250 favorite, and I definitely know he doesn't justify the minus 9,000 or whatever he is on DraftKings, right? So I'm going to be almost completely fading him on DraftKings, hoping he kind of stays away from that early finish, because that's what it's going to take to pay off his price. And, I could see this being a bit of a back and forth boring fight. If Nelson's able to implement that grappling successfully, he could get it done, though. And that's the way I'm going to lean. Not sure if I'll have a bet yet. Follow along on Twitter at Ryan's MMA Picks. Also have my bet MMA tips on there, so you can kind of check me out and understand what I've been doing historically. But yeah, man, we'll see if I get to Kyle Nelson at the window. I don't think so, but not liking Blake Bilder this week either. So let's move on. Next up, we're going to have Ayman Zahabi versus Arichi Lang. Good fight. I think it'll be fun. I like Arichi Lang a lot in this spot. It's been interesting to see the line movement on this as of late. Let's see where it went today. So I got a couple just, little $5 parlays back at the beginning of last week. And it was interesting. Arichi Lang, was about a minus 140 favorite at that time. And we saw him get down close to evens with Zahabi. So I was wondering if there might just be some inside baseball information I wasn't seeing, because I'm really liking Arichi Lang in this spot. I think he just does a lot more on the feet and really wants to draw out that fire from you. I think what he's liable from in this situation from Zahabi, who's really just known as the other Zahabi, right? And I'm not sure anytime in the UFC that's anything you want to be, right? But I think they're going to stay on the feet. I think it's going to be boxing, kickboxing match, boxing really for the most part. But I think Arichi Lang can ultimately touch him up. I think he's got to watch out for the counters as he comes in. But yeah, I think he gets the job done by KO here and is able to touch the hobby on the chin. So I like him in kind of all formats. Got a couple bets on him, and let's take a look at the KO line and see if that might be something worth sprinkling here. Haven't looked at it transparently yet, so we'll see here. Quilang by KO. We're getting plus 420 on FanDuel, so that's an okay look. But yeah, I think this is going to be an interesting fight and probably an important one for DraftKings too, right? Just with even money, both these guys kind of price similarly on the game. So which way you're going to go and whether you target this fight is going to be an interesting look as well. So. All right, let's keep moving. Keep it moving nice and quick here. On to the next fight with Jasmine Jasudavicius versus Miranda Maverick. Man, am I going to do it? I think I am. I'm going to keep going with the underdog story here. Man, on my first solo fight card, this could come back to bite me, but I like Jasmine Jasudavicius here over Miranda Maverick. Maverick is obviously John Anik said she was, the number one prospect for a time, right? Or not number one prospect, but she was going to be the one to watch, right? And everybody kind of had her circled on the programs, but I just haven't loved what I've seen during her time in the UFC so far, right? Like she definitely has some solid wrestling. I think she's okay on the feet. But I think wrestling is probably where she's most advantageous against most girls still here. The fighting's been getting a little bit better on the feet, and I think long term that's where she might tend to have a little bit more success, just because of her quickness and physical attributes as well. But yeah, and then back on the Jasudavicius side, a girl coming out of St. Kitts, Ontario, tough as a nail, really is going to get in there and scrap. I think she's got a good shot to play spoiler this week against Maverick. The 34-year-old is going to come in and just looking at the face-off looked a lot taller, a lot bigger. I think she's going to have a size advantage, and I think there's no bones about it. Her game is grappling as well, and she's going to think that she's the better wrestler here. And at plus 240. I'll pay to find out, and I'll definitely play it on DraftKings, right? Like I think there aren't that many great 9K plus fighters on DraftKings this week, so that's why I'm really liking some of the bigger underdogs or just these women's fights as well as the first fight we talked about, right? Just because they're going to be under-owned versus the rest of the field. So when you think about those large-scale tournaments, right, think about all the GPP tournaments where you're trying to really differentiate yourself. You want to be targeting those fights and those fighters that are really going to go unowned and undervalued, but still have a chance to score highly, right? So I think Jasmine Jasudavicius fits all of those boxes. She's really the play I'm going to be targeting heaviest on DraftKings this weekend, because I think if she gets the win, it's because she implemented the wrestling. It's because she got a lot of takedowns, right? It's because she was able to really take over as the fight goes on and continue to implement her game, right? And I think that scores well. I think it has 90 plus point upside at the sub 7.5 range. So love Jasudavicius this week from a DraftKings perspective. Might take a small shot on her on the money line as well. Let's keep moving. Next up, we're gonna have Nasruddin Imavov versus Chris Curtis. Wow, guys, I was just about to pull the trigger on Chris Curtis, and then I watched the weigh-ins. Chris Curtis looks so much smaller than Imavov here. I mean, man, I know, Curtis is always a little bit undersized for the division. That's nothing new, especially from a height perspective, right? And I think that's what it is, but man, he looks undersized here, and I don't know that he's going to be able to find that shot with the pressure that Imavov's going to be able to give, given the range he can also maintain as well, right? Like I know that Curtis has great takedown defense. I get that. Man, but I love the action, man. I really would like to see him keep winning, and I do like the narrative, the whole Strickland will be in the corner again, and Strickland was able to beat Imavov pretty easily last time out, coming in on short notice, but different fighters and different styles for sure. Yeah, I'm gonna. You know what? I'm gonna screw it. I'm gonna go with Chris Curtis this weekend. I'm definitely not gonna lay the bet now after I've seen them kind of up close and facing off against each other. But man, until he shows that he can't do it right or won't do it, I'm gonna trust Chris Curtis to get the job done and find that knockout blow or those heavy strikes that are really gonna change the course of this fight. Um, no, I no. I'm just trying to play into my favoritism. No, I'm going to Imavov here. I've got the Russian sniper in the matchup. I think he takes him the distance and just beats him over the 3 rounds. I'm going to go 29-28 Imavov. Yeah, I think that's the way to go, and I'm confident in that pick. So, just to talk about it quickly from a DraftKings perspective, don't really love this fight for either guy, and I'll be largely crossing this off. If anything, I'll have a bit more Curtis, given Imavov's lack of finishing equity, right? At that, again, high 9K range, don't think he has a lot of value for us going forward from a DraftKings perspective. So let's keep going. Next up, we've got Eric ya boy Anders versus the Power Bar, Marc-Andre Barriault. See, I don't know that you can nickname yourself the Power Bar while on steroids, but I guess he's maintained the attributes that make him the Power Bar, right? Which is that crazy pace and pressure, though. But you always kind of question that a little bit and how I don't know. Just the equity there. But he's coming back against Eric Anders here, who played for the University of Alabama football team. So I'm sure he had his fair share of as well. But it's a pretty close fight between the two of these guys here. It's not going to be the prettiest one. It could be a bit of a slugfest, bit of a war. I think that's what Barriault definitely would like to see. I think Anders on the other side probably wants to implement some more of his wrestling and keep it a little bit more technical and pretty, right? I like Anders to come in and get an upset here. Barriault is a good fighter, but he takes a lot of damage, and I don't love his takedown defense. It's not a fight that I want to bet on, right? Just because I don't trust either of these guys. I think they're kind of hit or miss depending on when they fight, and I really don't like it from a DraftKings perspective either. So let's not spend too much time on it. Might be a good fight to watch, but from a betting perspective, don't think you're getting a ton of value one way or another. Next up, we've got Dan Ige versus Nate Landwehr. You know what? This is my most confident pick on the card, and that's Dan 50K Ige, baby. Dan Ige is one of my favorites. Was really struggling there for a minute. Had those 3 consecutive losses to the Korean Zombie, then Josh Emmett and Mobsvar, right? So just really the creme de la creme there, but then was able to come back against Damon Jackson. People were counting him out against Damon Jackson, which is pretty ridiculous now in hindsight. He put him down with a couple nasty counters and a couple nasty shots and eventually won by KO. On the other side, he's going to be facing Nate the Train Landwehr. Nate's been really hot as of late, and on that big push because of his mic skills, I think more than anything else. He is a beast inside the cage. He will fight for your money hard, but he takes a lot of shots. And I think he's just going to be a very hittable target for Ige over the course of 15 minutes. You know what? And I think Ige finds a way to get him out of there. I really like the confidence I saw from Ige at the weigh-ins today. I just think he looks good, looks healthy, and I think he's going to come in and quickly kind of find that chin of Landwehr in the first and then put him to sleep in the second. So this is a fight I do like as a kind of big favorite on DraftKings in Dan Ige. I have a small bet on the money line on Ige, and then he'll be the anchor on some of my parlays as well this week. Oh, we have a bit of a technical issue there. But next up, we're going to go to Mike Malott versus Adam Fugit. So Mike Proper Malott and Adam Fugit. This is a good fight, but one that's a bit hard to call just because we lack a bit of information on both guys in terms of how they perform at the highest level, right? Which is interesting this high up the card. But it's because they have that really fun and interesting fight style. Last time, obviously, we saw Fugit against Kinoshita come in and get that W as a massive underdog, right? Was able to implement the wrestling and then get on top and finish there. And then you got proper Mike Malott, right? Who's 5-0 in his last 5, comes in there, as a beast. Didn't fight for a while, right? Aged up a little bit, but clearly he was working on his game and working on his training. The big thing there is we just haven't seen him against that super high level of competition, except in, Hakeem Dawodu was his one loss on the regional scene and wasn't a great look there. I just don't know how we can know about his late round skills and gas tank specifically, and I just trust Fugit a little bit more in those areas. So I think there's definitely a good shot Malott comes out here in the first round and knocks him out. Otherwise, I kind of like Fugit here. So my look is either going to be Fugit by submission or by decision. So let's take a look at what those odds are right now. You can still get Fugit on the money line for plus 175. But Fugit by sub at, plus 1150, plus 1200 is a really interesting look, I think. And then Fugit by decision, right, at plus 650. So I think those are kind of definitely his 2 highest win probabilities in my mind, even though he had the TKO last time out, right? Like Fugit is a grappler more so than he is a striker. So I do think this is a good chance for him to go out and be able to get it done. So, yeah, I'm gonna go with Fugit, and I'm gonna go with him getting the sub actually in round 3 once Malott tires out a little bit. From a DraftKings perspective, obviously I like Fugit just a bit. But I also like Malott, and I think this is a fight you have to target just because both guys have pretty high finishing equity. And Malott can finish it pretty quickly in that first minute. And then Fugit, as we said, right, if he's able to kind of start wearing him down and implementing takedowns or anything like that, I think there's a good shot. He scores well from an underdog perspective as well. All right, we've got 2 more fights here. And it's my favorite fight and probably everybody's favorite fight on the card. We've got the co-main event. It's Charles Oliveira versus Beneil Dariush. Off the top, I'm going to tell you, I think Beneil has got this one in the bag. I know it. He's got it in the bag, guys. This is a great spot for Beneil Dariush from every perspective, from a narrative perspective, from a physical advantages perspective, right? From, I think, stamina and chin advantage at this point. I just don't like what I've seen from Oliveira over the last couple of fights. I know, it's the highest level guys in the world, but I think Beneil has been working that way to the top for so long to get to this point, to get to this fight and waiting for it, finding those, really crafting his way. He didn't rush his way to the top, right? I think he has gotten here the way he has wanted to get here and, the way he should, right? And I really do believe that he gets this done. So less of a technical read on this one. I just think this is Dariush's time to kind of go in there and get this done. And I did like, Oliveira looked good on the scales today, which is always kind of an interesting question with him. I think you're going to get an awesome fight here, but I just do think that Beneil, is going to be able to keep everything competitive and close on the feet. I think he definitely has a bit of a power upside there. We saw him against Gamrot, really hurt him with some big shots. And then in the grappling, I trust Dariush to stay safe. And from advantageous positions, I think he can threaten himself and ultimately, find a way to do something. So what I'm actually going to look for is Beneil Dariush. I obviously have the money line, and I think that's gone at this point. It's about minus 150, which is a bit wide. But the submission line could actually be something interesting to look at for Dariush, right? Because everyone knows our boy Charles as our submission expert, but Dariush, obviously, that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or second-degree Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. So I think that could be, and we've seen Oliveira, submitted in the past, so it's not unheard of by any means. So you can get him at plus 500 on DraftKings by submission. I think that's an interesting look, maybe in that second or third round. Yeah, because I think it does kind of get that first round going. I think both of them will be pretty reserved for the first couple of minutes, just feeling their way in, knowing how big of a fight this is, and knowing that both of these guys are dangerous, really, no matter where the fight goes. So with that said, I'm going to take Dariush here by submission. Finally, the last fight of the night, we've got the UFC Bantamweight Championship on the line. It's Amanda Nunes versus Irene Aldana. This is another Amanda Nunes fight. She should win. She's better just about everywhere. I think the boxing of Aldana is definitely, her path. It's where she's, most advantageous against a girl like Nunes, where you're not really sure what the cardio and what the motivation looks like anymore, right? Like we did see her fold in the Pena fight just from that consistent pace and pressure that she put on her for like a round or two. I think if Nunes is in the gym training and working hard, she's going to win. She is one of, if not the best ever. And, it just is. I think it's a question of when she retires at this point, right? So I think there could be value on fading the other side. I just don't see it in this matchup, and I don't see what, I don't think I think there's another path out, and I think the loss here could be, a difficult thing for Nunes to come back to. So I think she's going to go out on her own terms, and I don't think it's this matchup against, another 35-year-old in Aldana. So yeah, I like the Lioness. I like her in DraftKings, and obviously in all formats, cash specifically. But she'll be owned on GPP. But I might even be over the field there, as I think she's one of those people worth paying up for this weekend. So I'm going to take Amanda Nunes, and think she gets the job done this weekend. I think she gets it done by maybe by a ground and pound KO in the later rounds. Great. So we just went through all 11 cards. Thanks for watching and following along with us. This is the Cage Cash podcast. I'm your host, Ryan. This was episode 8. Next week, we'll have John back to help break down some of the fights, but wanted to jump on and give my reactions and my picks for this great card, UFC 289. So leave a like, leave a comment down below if you like the video. Let me know what you thought of my picks, what you think of the predictions, and let's stack some tickets this weekend, and hope to talk to everyone soon.